Good evening, I welcome Rama Singh from New Jersey. It is around 8 a.m. in the morning. She has been one of our regular participants. She is taking time and attending most of our programs. Yeah, thank you.
That's commendable. Thank you, Miss
Be-
Amma, for
yeah,
taking our
be-
time.
because of this participants' patronage, only we are able to deliver it regularly. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I am Anand Kumar. I am practicing in Delhi High Court, and I am going to be your host and the moderator for today's webinar. I welcome you all to the 13th webinar of the series titled All You Need to Know About the Micro, Small, Medium Enterprises Law and Arbitration by our special speaker, Advocate Tariq Khan, Principal Associate Disputes, Advani and Co. New Delhi. First things first, we thank all the participants for your continuous support. As always, we just keep a request from our end. Kindly enable mute from your end, and if possible, kindly disable your videos too. In between the session, I request you kindly not to present during the webinar, and rest of the things are fine. If you have any doubts, you can directly ask our special speaker in the chat box. This is a completely moderated session, and if time permits, all your questions will be answered by our special speaker. So we are evolving too. We are continuously watching our previous webinar videos, and we are trying to do error correction. So we are giving something more in the new webinars. We are introducing new segments. We are bringing in renowned speakers and also bringing in interesting topics. We want to give our participants nothing but the best. We owe the entire credit of this webinar to our special speaker, Advocate Tariq Ji. After all, we are just setting up a platform for the special speaker to connect with the participants and vice versa. We are just facilitators, in fact. So, as a formal introduction about the organizers for this event, we are Team AP Legal Chambers, a new age law firm in Delhi NCR, with our branch office in Chennai. Things started to fall in place in 2017, and we had committed ourselves for providing the plenary services to our clients and trying to resolve their legal issues to the best of our abilities. We have been providing specialized services in the field of domestic and international taxation, constitutional laws, IPR, energy laws, commercial arbitration, and corporate compliances. We started organizing these webinars out of our passion for law, and the tremendous response which we got from the participants made us to uh, conduct the webinars on every Thursdays and Sundays. As always, once the special speaker's presentation gets over, we shall be having the segment called APLC's APLC, Ask the Popular Learned Counsel. We have prepared a set of questions from our end, and we would be asking our speaker. I am sure these questions will be informative as well as interesting. In today's webinar, we shall be covering the all-important topic of MSMEs, Micro, Small, Medium Enterprises Development Laws, the overview of the MSME Development Act, classification of MSMEs under the MSME Development Act and recent amendments to the definition of MSME, how to file a claim before the MSEF Council and conduct of proceedings before the Council, important judgments on the MSME Act, and more. So let me introduce the special speaker of the evening. We have in our midst Advocate Tariq Khan, who is currently working as the Principal Associate Disputes in Advani and Co. New Delhi. And he was also a secretary to the Tribunal for the SIAC arbitration. He is an experienced counsel with a demonstrated history of working in various tribunals, high courts, and the Supreme Court of India. Skilled in international and domestic arbitrations, MSME disputes, commercial laws, writ remedies, etc. Mr. Tariq is a guest faculty in various law colleges across Delhi and NCR, including Lloyd Law College, Greater Noida, and the Indian Law Institute, ILI, Delhi. He was recently featured in the Fortune 500 India magazine, special issue 2017-18, for authoring the bestseller book on published by the Universal Law Publishing, an imprint of LexisNexis, and he made it to the conference round of the Judge Advocate General JAG examination associated with, he is also associated with various NGOs and commissions, etc. He has represented a world's leading renewable energy solutions provider in a dispute relating to several wind power projects of different capacities. He represented a leading US seismic imaging services provider in their enforcement proceedings in India. Mr. Tariq represented a public sector undertaking in a multi-million dollar dispute in an ICC arbitration arising out of an illegal termination of contract for setting up a blast furnace. He has also represented various MSMEs as a lead counsel in various domestic arbitrations as well as in Indian court proceedings. A few selected publications of our special speaker. He was the editor-in-chief of a book titled On the Rise by the Universal Law Publishings. He has also written articles on the art of cross-examination, which was published in the Bar and Bench. 25 important judgments on arbitration in 2020. 50 landmark decisions on arbitration law in India. History and development of arbitration law in India. Conflicts of interest in appointment of arbitrators, recent issues and suggestions. He has also authored Remembering the People's Debt, Judicial Philosophy of Justice Krishna Iyer, the doyen of the Indian judiciary. He has also, to his credit, has got the Arbitration Amendment Act 2015, new Section 36 applying to even pending Section 34 applications on the date of commencement of the Amendment Act. And he also covered BCCI versus Kochi Cricket Private Limited and etc. It is also available in live law. Whatever I have told about the special speaker is just a small drop in the ocean. Just for the want of time, we are not going into the other details of our special speaker's credentials. With this basic introduction, I welcome our special speaker to APLC's webinar, the 13th webinar of the series. And with this, I take the opportunity to welcome all our participants as well. So without taking much of your time, I leave the session to our special speaker. I welcome our special speaker on board. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Anand, for such a lovely introduction. I was actually very happy to listen to something like this. And thank you, everyone. Thank you all of you to take out time on a Sunday evening, especially when everybody is bored and sick and tired of webinars in general, because I think we have had too many webinars on a daily basis. But this one is pretty different, and I thank Anand for choosing this topic because it is a very different topic, a unique topic. And though people may not have heard much about the MSME Act, but it is a legislation which is a welfare legislation. And a lot of people nowadays, recently, we have seen the COVID package and the announcement by the Honorable Finance Minister, wherein she talked about the MSMEs and a loan of thousands of crores being granted to these MSMEs. So in times to come, it is going to play a very vital role, and it is going to be a good for future lawyers, for aspiring lawyers or young lawyers who want to make a mark in the profession. I feel that it is a very good area and a very nice field to practice in the time to comes. So without wasting much time, I will briefly start. Okay, I'll be discussing from the scratch because many people have discussed with me and asked me raise certain queries because I have done a couple of matters in MSME Council as well as the arbitrations under the MSMED Act, which is a statutory arbitration, and it is different from the Arbitration Act 1996. Before I begin with the mechanism for resolution of dispute, I would like to first tell you what MSMEs are. So like the name suggests, micro, small, medium enterprises. Before the MSMED Act of 2006, there was an Act of Interest on Delayed Payments Act, and this was of 1993. And if you look at the Section 32 of the MSMED Act 2006, it talks about the repeal of the 1993 Act, which was the original act under which these enterprises were governed earlier. When in 2006, the Act of 1993 got repealed and the MSMED Act came into existence, then a notification was issued that anybody who was earlier registered under the Act of 1993 should, within 180 days from the date of enactment of the MSMED Act, which is the Micro, Small, Medium Enterprises Development Act, must file a memorandum before the authority under Section 8. Because if you read the language of Section 8 of the MSMED Act, it talks about filing of a memorandum before the concerned authority to be registered as a micro, small, medium enterprise. Now, whenever a person has to start some business, I'll take a step back. You have certain questions in your mind that I need to start some unit or some machinery I need to invest in. How do I go about it? Should I register it as a company or a sole proprietor? Should it be a micro, small, or medium enterprise? The reason why people would prefer a micro or a small enterprise is because of various benefits that accrue along with such registration. So once you get registered as a micro or a small enterprise, some of the benefits I'll tell you. So you will get a loan which is collateral free loan. So without any collateral security, you will be given loan by the government. And you may have heard about the bank SIDBI, Small Industries Development Bank of India. So that bank, as well as the Ministry of Micro Small Entities, and as well as the Government of India, they have been trying to give funds to these entities so that they can grow. Now, what is the aim and objective of this Act of 2006? If you look at the object of the 2006 Act, it talks about facilitating and promoting these micro or small enterprises. And why? Because there have been in the past cases where these entities were becoming sick industries. So to avoid these instances of sickness amongst these entities, such an act came into existence, which is a welfare legislation, and it talks about various benefits which a micro or a small enterprise will be entitled to. Now, some of the other benefits, if I talk about apart from the loan without collateral security, the other is when you get yourself registered, get your patent registered, then there is a subsidy on patent registration. Up to 50% benefit is that there'll be no full 100% payment to be done by the micro or small enterprise in case it wishes to get its patent registered or for the industrial promotion. And it also gets certain concession on electricity, etc. And apart from that, there is an act, there is a provision for delay in the payment. So there is a huge amount of interest which is given to the MSME in case their payments are delayed, which is the biggest benefit in my view, due to which this act comes into the picture. Now, I'll tell you how do you categorize, how do you say which is an entity, micro entity, or a small entity, or a medium enterprise. So if you look at the language of Section 7 of the Act, Section 7 of the Act talks about two different criteria. So one is that a micro or a medium enterprise or a small enterprise may either be manufacturing itself, meaning thereby that it may be having an industrial unit, it may have certain machinery or a plant where there will be certain equipments, and it must be engaged into manufacturing of products. So that is one criteria of manufacturing. The other criteria is rendering services, that if that entity is rendering services, then also it will fall in the category of a micro or a small enterprise. Now, Section 7 of the original Act of 2006 talks about two criterias. One is that investment in machinery and plant for the purpose of calculating whether this entity would fall under micro or a small or medium enterprise. So if it's up to 25 lakh to 1 crore, the investment in the machinery, then it would be a micro enterprise. If it's more than that, then it is a small enterprise. So there is a table which was given originally based on the amount of investment in the machinery of the enterprise. That is how they used to initially determine whether it will be a micro or a small enterprise or a medium enterprise. But later on, in recent cases, we have seen there were a lot of disputes regarding this. First issue I will like to address, if you would take out any case law pertaining to MSME, the most common dispute was that an entity was not registered under the Act at the time of entering into the contract. So suppose I enter into a contract with Anand, and Anand does not know that I am a micro or a small enterprise, and I did not have any registration certificate, which I told you as per Section 8, entities can get themselves registered as a micro or a small enterprise. And Suppose the contract was entered in 2010 and supplies were made. Now in 2015, when the project is concluded, I ask Anand to make payments to me. And when he doesn't make those payments, I ask him that, look, I am a micro or a small enterprise and I'm getting myself registered. So I get myself registered in 2015. And then I ask the Facilitation Council to give me the benefits of the Act, which in a way tantamount to retrospective applicability of these benefits. Now, that was the most common issue in almost every judgment you will see, that entity would get itself registered after the contract and then ask for pending payments as per the MSME. Now, what is the problem with MSME and why buyers do not want a supplier to go under the MSME Act, and why they want that arbitration should be governed under the Arbitration Act? So if you look at the language of section 15, 16, 17, 18 till 23, now section 15 talks about liability of the buyer to make payment. If you read the language of 15, it says that if there is a micro or a small enterprise engaged in a matter or in an agreement, and if the payments are not being cleared in time, then maximum time for clearing those payments is 45 days from the date on which such a demand to make payments was raised by the supplier. If these payments are not cleared within 45 days, then comes section 16, which talks about the penal interest. Now, interestingly, it talks about interest on these delayed payments, which would be 3 times the bank rate interest. So as per RBI circular, RBI has its own circular, Reserve Bank of India, as per which the monthly rest is calculated and the amount is compounding. So it approximately turns out to be 25-26% interest. So at times I have seen where the matter was of 2010 and the amount was 80 lakhs or so, but eventually with interest it turned out to be 3 crores. So interest sometimes is 4 times or 5 times the actual balance amount. So that is why a lot of buyers say it is a penal legislation, and in a way it is a penalty and it is a draconian law. Whereas if you look from the side of the micro or a small enterprise, for them it's a welfare legislation, which is to ensure that their money is not stuck somewhere and no buyer should keep their payments delayed. Now, many times these questions were raised. So whenever any micro or small entity was in trouble, whenever their payments were not cleared, the first step as per section 18, I've told you about section 15 and 16, which talk about the 3 times the bank rate interest to be paid by the buyer in case the payment is not made within 45 days. Now, if you look at section 18, which I think is the most important provision of the MSMED Act, section 18 basically says that in case a party wants to approach the conciliation body, because there is a 2-step conciliation and then arbitration. So the dispute resolution mechanism is a 2-step mechanism. And the first step is that you will go for conciliation. As you all know what conciliation is, but this conciliation is under the Statutory Act, which is under section 18. So when you approach a party for conciliation and then you file a claim, basically you will file your claims as a micro or a small enterprise. You will say that this is the amount of money which is due. These are the invoices and this is the money payable to me. Then the MSEFC Council will call the other party, the buyer, to come and say why they do not want to settle. So the role of the conciliation body is to ensure that settlement is done. There may be a case of settlement, there may not be a case of settlement. It completely depends from case to case basis. Suppose that settlement does not happen and the other party says, no, I will not be going for settlement and I want to take this to arbitration. So one of the most common objection that we have seen is that the buyer will then take refuge of the independent agreement which was entered into. So mostly in agreements, you see an arbitration clause, and the buyer will say that this micro or small enterprise cannot approach the council because there is a private agreement between the parties under which there is an arbitration clause, and thus this has to be governed by arbitration and it cannot go on in MSMED Act. Many a times buyer will file a writ petition against any order or in respect of the jurisdiction of the council, saying that this micro or small enterprise was not registered under the act at the time of entering into the contract with me, and today it is not open for them to approach the council, and that too when there is an independent agreement between us which says that there will be arbitration in case any dispute arise. So this is the most common kind of objection which you will see in all MSME cases. The buyers, the companies will always say, no, we don't want to go to MSME. This arbitration or this dispute resolution cannot happen under the MSMED Act because they never told us that they were MSME. We thought they are a normal company, and now dispute has to be resolved as per the contract. The courts have taken different views in relation to this. So the first common issue which arises is whether a party which was not registered under Section 8, meaning thereby which did not file a memorandum under the Section 8 with the authority, would qualify for the benefits of micro small enterprise or not. Now, this question was answered interestingly in a very, I think, which is one of the landmark judgments on the subject. It is GETND versus Reliable Engineering. It is a judgment of Justice Muralidhar passed by the Delhi High Court in 2017. In this case, the question was whether it is mandatory to get registered with the authority under Section 8 to get the benefits of the Act. Thank you, Kushika. Kushika has shared the citation also, I think. So when this question was raised, what in para 32, the Delhi High Court held was that any entity which is not registered at the time of entering into the contract with the buyer does not cease to be one. So the nature does not change. Merely registration makes the availing of the benefits easier. So that was the ratio. And then it was held that when an entity gets itself registered and supplies after that also, make any kind of supplies, then it will be entitled to the benefits of the Micro, Small, Medium Enterprise Development Act. Why the buyers have an issue with this act? Like I pointed, the first reason is that they feel it is a draconian law because of the interest, which is 3 times the bank rate interest, which is substantial. And the second reason is it talks about a mandatory conciliation, which is then followed by arbitration. So the independent arbitration agreement of the parties is kept aside. That is the reason why these private entities and buyers have a problem that arbitration should not be governed by the MSMED Act, and this entity, the seller, the supplier, should not be entitled to claim benefits of the act. Now, the second question which comes is, what if an entity did not register itself at the time of making supplies and the contract was concluded and the registration of such an entity was not done? Then what will happen? This has been a very interesting case. There was a case in which it was one of my own matters. The name of the matter is Ramki Infrastructure Limited versus MSEFC and another. And this is a judgment by Justice Bhakaru, wherein the question was that the micro or a small enterprise did not file a memorandum before the authority at the time of entering into the contract with the seller, with the buyer. And only after the agreement was concluded, the registration was done with the authority. Now they moved to the conciliation body and conciliation was entertained. Now the objection which came in writ petition, a writ petition was filed against the jurisdiction of the council, saying that this person was not a micro or a small enterprise and was not registered. And it was never into my knowledge that I am entering into a contract with a micro or small enterprise. So how can they get benefits of the act, and how this arbitration can go on under the MSMED Act when in fact there is an independent arbitration agreement and the jurisdiction is not Delhi, the jurisdiction in Gujarat as per the independent agreement. So the court held that MSMED Act will prevail over the Arbitration Act because the independent agreement that the parties enter into, it is not going to override the Act of Parliament, which is the MSMED Act. So if you read the language of Section 24, which is, I think, another most important provision of the MSMED Act, whenever there is a conflict between MSMED Act and any other law for the time being in force. So 24 says that notwithstanding anything contained in any other law, the provisions of section 15 to 23 of the MSMED Act shall have an overriding effect. So anything inconsistent with the MSMED Act will go away and MSMED Act will prevail. That is one thing which all of us must keep in mind. So such objections that are raised that there is an independent arbitration agreement between the parties and arbitration procedure is XYZ, jurisdiction is ABC, all of that has no value, does not hold any merit because of the section 24, which is an overriding provision. Now, if you look at so the judgment which I told you about Ramki Infrastructure Limited, what the court held in that case regarding the registration, whether it is mandatory or not, because a lot of micro or small enterprises do not know whether they should get registered or not. And if they get registered, whether they will be entitled to benefits retrospectively or not in the matters or the contracts which they entered earlier prior to the registration. So the answer was given by Justice Bhakru in this judgment of Ramki Infrastructure Limited. What he held was that if you look at the language of the supplier under section 2N, so like I told you, the investment in machinery is to be seen for the purpose of classification, that whether it is a micro or a small enterprise. And then you read the language of section 2N, which defines who's a supplier. Because if you carefully see the benefits under 15, 16, 17, 18, the wordings in the 15 and 16, which talks about the liability of the buyer, the word supplier has been used, that where a supplier supplies. So the word micro or small has not been used. The word supplier has been used, meaning thereby you need to qualify as a supplier to get the benefits of the act and to be eligible to get these 3 times the bank rate interest, etc. Now, supplier definition says simply this, that if you want to be a supplier, you need to file a memorandum as per section 8, which makes it clear that if a micro or a small enterprise wants to be a supplier under the act, then it has to mandatorily file a registration with the authority under section 8. However, there is another part, another categories which are given in the same section. So if you look at the language of section 2N carefully, there are another subheadings 2, 3, and 4. What it says, it basically says, if you look at 2 and 3, it says any cooperative society or a company by whatever name called should also be treated as the micro small enterprise and must be getting all the benefits. So one criteria is that you file the registration with the authority, then you are definitely a supplier. But Justice Bhakru explained in the judgment of Ramki Infrastructure Limited that there are entities which do not file their memorandum with the authority, they do not get registered, still they will be entitled to the benefits of the act by virtue of section 2 and 3. I will just read it quickly for you. That's, I think, the most important provision which saves a lot of micro or small enterprise, because at times an objection comes from the other side that because you did not file a registration memorandum with the authority under section 8, therefore you cannot qualify to be a micro or small enterprise. So the language of section 2N, which defines supplier, it says supplier means a micro or a small enterprise which has filed a memorandum with the authority referred in section 8, which I have explained you, and includes. Now, one is that you file a memorandum, then definitely you are a supplier. But if you have not filed a memorandum as per section 8, then whether you will be entitled to the benefits of the act and whether you will be a supplier or not, it says and includes. Let's see what it includes. The first is National Small Industries Corporation. Second is Small Industries Development Corporation. And third is the most important category, 2 and 3. Any company, cooperative society, trust, or a body by whatever name called, registered or constituted under any law for the time being in force, and engaged in selling goods produced by micro or small enterprises and rendering services which are provided by such enterprises. So what Justice Bhakru said, he said if you look at the language of 2N, 1 and 2, which are government entities, the National Small Industries Corporation and the Small Industries Corporation. So they definitely do not have to file a registration with the authority because they are themselves government entities. So registration is mandatory only with the first limb of the definition of a supplier. But the definition is exhaustive because it includes that part. These two words would also ensure that entities which are not registered as a supplier under Section 8 will also qualify, provided that they fall under the 2 and 3, which I have read for you. So that is what the judgment of Ramki Infrastructure Limited was, which I think has settled the debate on the point that whether an entity which was not registered as a supplier will still be eligible to get the benefits under the Act. The court said, yes, you will be eligible, even if you have not filed a memorandum with the authority under Section 8, provided that you fall in the other limbs. Because Justice Bhakru said there are 4 limbs of the definition. The first one talks about mandatory registration. Second talks about the National Small Industries Corporation. Third talks about the Small Industries Development Corporation. And the fourth one is the most important, that is the 2 and 3. So if you fall in that category where you are supplying or rendering services of the products which are produced by micro or small enterprises, then you will be qualified to get the benefits under the Act, even if you are not registered under the Act. Now, this is the debate regarding the definition of supplier. I know it's pretty confusing, but in nutshell, it is that if an objection comes to any micro or small enterprise from a buyer before a conciliation body or in an arbitration where they say that, look, you have not registered yourself as a micro or small entity under Section 8, therefore you cannot get the benefits of the Act, then you have to answer to them saying that, look, registration is not mandatory because my nature was always of a micro or small entity and I fall in the category of 2 and 3. So this is the long and short of it, and you will still be eligible to get the benefits under the Act. Now I'd like to move on to the next recent amendments to the micro or small enterprise. See, it's a very technical subject, but it's a very simple law because investment in machinery, etc. may sound boring, but it is pretty simple if you try to read these provisions that I'm telling you. Now the amendments to the micro small enterprise. So I told you what is the criteria for classification. So the first thing is, like I told you, if you look at Section 7 of the Act, Section 7 talks about investment in machinery, and it was based on 2 criteria. One is manufacturing and second was rendering services. So either you are manufacturing the goods or you are rendering services of a micro or small enterprise. So criteria was based on that. However, in the 2018 amendment bill was proposed, as per which they said what we will do, we will make it criteria based on the turnover of the entity. Now this attracted a lot of debate and problems were attracted because many MSMEs were not happy with it. Why they were not happy? Basically, MSMEs said that, look, we were enjoying the benefits of the Act as per the investment in machinery criteria, because the only way to find out whether an entity is a micro or a small enterprise or not is by looking at their balance sheets. You look at their balance sheet and you decide whether what is the investment in the machinery of this plant, the equipments, etc. And as per that, they used to determine, okay, look, if it is falling 25 lakh to 1 crore, then it is a micro entity. 1 crore to 5 crores, small entity. So this was the criteria. And this criteria was different if you are rendering services. But what happened in 2018 was when such an amendment was proposed, the MSME Amendment Bill, it said that the criteria is going to change to turnover of the entity. That now the criteria will not be the investment in the machinery to determine whether it is a micro or small entity. Rather, we will look at the turnover of such an entity and ascertain that what is the actual nature. Because I'll tell you what was the issue with the first criteria, which was in Section 7. The main issue with Section 7 criteria was that if I am a micro or a small enterprise and I set my business up in 2000, at that time, when I had set up my business, I may have invested 5 crores or 20 lakhs in my machinery. But over a period of time, this amount or the investment in machinery increases. And sometimes you call yourself a micro enterprise, whereas you are drawing turnover of 100 crores. So imagine you are still getting the benefits of the act, which is only for these micro or small enterprise. But no, there is no mechanism to check that whether you have increased your investment in the machinery, what is the current investment in the machinery. 20 years ago or 15 years ago, you got registered as a micro entity, and till date, you are enjoying the benefits of the act as a micro entity. Even if you have not even falling in the small entity, you have crossed the turnover of 100 crores, your investment in machinery substantially increased, but there was no mechanism to find out. And that was the major problem. In fact, there was a committee formed, RBI committee. Reserve Bank of India had formed a committee to look into these issues, and I think this was one of the issue which was pointed out. And that's why in 2018, the amendment bill said, look, now no more considering the investment in machinery, the criteria, because the problem with the investment in machinery is if you look at the balance sheet of that year when it was formed, so machinery is it's an asset which depreciates with time, and it's something is depreciating, so you can't actually find out the actual investment in the machinery. So that was a major issue. So now the discussion was in 2018 that look, let's make it turnover. Whatever will be the turnover, that shall be the criteria to ascertain whether it is a micro or a small enterprise or not. But again, an issue came. Now MSMEs were not happy. When they realized that such an amendment was about to come, they said, look, if you do this criteria, then many traders who are not micro or small entities, they merely import from foreign countries. They do not set up any entities or plants or establishment. They will be able to claim the benefits of the act under the micro or small enterprise. They will show a turnover and they will say, I am a micro, I am rendering services, or I am a small enterprise. So they said the genuine MSMEs will not get the benefit. Rather, these traders will be able to get the benefit of the act by importing. And they also pointed their concern that, look, if you promote the criteria of turnover to ascertain whether an entity is a micro or a small enterprise, then the problem is that it will encourage import of goods and in fact defeat the purpose and vision of the government, which talks about, like, the recent is Atmanirbhar. We want to produce ourselves. So in fact, if you put the turnover as a criteria, then nobody is going to have machinery, etc. And the other criteria, they said, the other problem was, they said if turnover was going to be the criteria, then these traders do not have to put any establishment, they do not have to pay any employees. Whereas we micro small entities, we are having our unit, we have expenses to bear, we have people to pay. So our profit margin is very less, whereas their profit margin will be much more, and they can show their turnover to be lesser than that. So in that way also they will have an advantage over us. So that's why MSMEs strongly objected to the 2018 bill on this ground that criteria cannot be only on the basis of turnover. In June, a notification was introduced, I think 1st June or so, wherein it is in 2020, recently. The Honorable Minister, in consultation with the concerned ministry and other relevant stakeholders, they in fact introduced a very interesting criteria, the present one. They said what we will do is we will make it, I'll just tell you what the criteria is. I've noted it down. So this was a circular of 1st June 2020. I was right about it. They said this will come in effect from 1st July 2020. They said the classification will now be based on investment and turnover. So you have to show your investment in the machinery, and you also have to show the turnover of certain limit. Now, this is the one which is prevailing today, so I will read it out for you. So if you are a micro enterprise, investment in your machinery should be up to 1 crore, and you have to show a turnover less than 5 crores. So investment in machinery up to 1 crore and turnover of the entity should be less than 5 crore. Both these qualification must meet to make you a micro enterprise. Now, what is the criteria for a small enterprise? For a small enterprise, it should be 1 crore to 10 crore, the investment in the machinery between this bracket of 1 to 10 crores, and 5 to 50 crores should be the turnover. If this criteria is going to match, then you will be a small enterprise. Now, this is a criteria. So what we have discussed as per section 7, originally, it was only based on the investment in the machinery. Thereafter, in 2018 bill, they proposed that it will be only on the basis of turnover. But finally, on 1st June, the notification said it will be investment in machinery and the turnover of the entity. Both the qualifications should meet to ensure that you are a micro or a small enterprise. So this way, the concern of these MSMEs was addressed that, look, you are afraid that traders will be able to get the benefits. No, traders will not, because they have to show investment in machinery. So only you will get the benefits. And at the same time, we will also keep a check on you, because one hand you say that I'm a micro entity showing less investment in the machinery. And if you are drawing turnovers of huge amount, then you will not be an entity registered under the Act. Now, the problem with this criteria is simply this, that assuming I am a micro entity, my investment in machinery is up to 1 crore and I satisfy that condition. But my turnover is more than 5 crores. Then where do I go? I can neither fall in the category of micro nor in the category of small, because for small, I have to satisfy both. That is 1 to 10 crores investment in the machinery, which is not there, but my turnover falls in the small category. So that is a major practical problem which will arise eventually. In fact, the Honorable Minister recently said in one of the interviews that I will try to change the word and as or. So either you have to show that you are having investment of so and so amount, or you can show the turnover, whichever it is, so that you get the benefits of the Act. But again, the problem would be that if that and is treated as or, then these traders will again come into the picture and they will take the benefits of the Act, which would not be in the interest of the genuine MSMEs. However, very recently, I think on 26th June, another notification was issued, which is the latest one as on date. In this notification, what they have done is, I think this is the way forward and an excellent exercise that they have done. They said now we will keep everything online. So this has been implemented from 1st July. So this is the current law. They said that there is going to be a portal which will be called Udyam Registration Portal. Anyone, so suppose I want to today establish a micro or a small enterprise, what I need to do, I need to go online on this portal, fill up my details. Nobody is going to check anything. There's going to be no verification, and I will simply get myself registered and I will get an e-certificate immediately. But the interesting criteria of this 26th June, which I'm talking about, which has been implemented from 1st July, it says that every year there will be inspection. Now, what will be the nature of inspection? They will check the calculation, the investment in the machinery. And how they will determine it? They will determine it by the ITR which you file every year. So 31st March, the financial year ending, you will have to show for the previous year. And on that basis, they will assess your turnover also, as well as your investment in the machinery. And they will need your invoice of the machines, the original invoices. And even if these are second-hand machines which you are buying, even for that purpose, they will calculate it from the invoice. So whether they are second-hand or new, it doesn't matter. And every year, what ITR you are filing, that will in fact solve the issue, that so that nobody can take undue advantage of the Act. The other thing is, how will you determine the turnover? So for investment in machinery, I have told you, the criteria is they look at your ITR, they look at the actual invoices of the machines. But for the purpose of seeing the turnover, they will rely on the GST number, the GST return, what GST you have filed, and your PAN card. This has to be given so that they can simply find out. It is very easy with GST to find out what is the actual turnover of any entity. So now no more entities can take benefit of the Act. Undue benefits, the genuine ones will only get the benefit. And this is a very simple procedure. You can go online, you can fill in the details, and it is all simple paperless. But one thing which is to be kept in mind is this: if you give a false declaration and if somebody reports it, because now the provision to report also has been introduced, you will lose all the benefits of the act and you will in a way be barred from getting these benefits. So one has to be very clear, and now it is not that simple. After this new circular which has come, the notification which has come by the ministry dated 26th of June, which is going to be implemented, which is now implemented from 1st July. So please read this notification. It is very important. It is the recent amendment in the definition of MSMEs, that who qualify to be a MSME, and the criteria I have told you as on date is investment in machinery and the annual turnover. So these are the criteria. Now moving forward, so this is the classification criteria I've explained. Then I've explained you whether registration is mandatory under Section 8 or not, and what you have to do to be a supplier under 2N, which was answered by Ramki Infrastructure Limited. Now another issue, which, okay, I'll read the very important provision, which is Section 18 of the Act. So if you look at, I have discussed with you, I'll just briefly tell you what are the key provisions of the Act. Read Section 2N, then you read Section 7, then you read Section 8, and then 15 onwards. 15, 16, I have told you talk about payment in 45 days, and 16 talks about the interest, which will be 3 times the bank rate interest. Now 18 is my favorite because that is where I come into the picture, the lawyers come into the picture. So if you look at Section 18, Section 18 talks about a reference to be made to micro or small enterprises facilitation council. Now the role of this facilitation council is extremely crucial. Now this part is very pertinent for all the lawyers. I'll read it out for you. If you look at the language of Section 18(1), it talks about notwithstanding. So it is a non-obstant clause. It supersedes everything. Notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, any party to a dispute may, with regard to any amount due, make a reference to the Micro or Small Enterprise Facilitation Council. So if I am not happy, my payments are not being made by Anand, for instance, I will approach the facilitation councils. In every city, there is a facilitation council. I've seen in UP, they are doing it. In Delhi, there is one in Connaught Place. So facilitation council, how they will ascertain the jurisdiction and all, I'll just come to that. All of that is very, very interesting. Section 18(1) talks about a reference to the council. Now what Section 18(2) says? Section 2 says, subsection 2 of Section 18 says that on a receipt of a reference, what will the council do? Council will conduct conciliation proceedings. And conciliation proceedings will be, the attempt will be to get the matter settled. And if it is not settled, then it will be referred for arbitration. Either the council can itself do the arbitration or refer it to any institution which is doing arbitration. Like in Delhi, their practice is that if the conciliation fails, they refer the matter to DIAC, which is the Delhi International Arbitration Center, where then the arbitration is conducted as per DIAC. And very interestingly, it says that when you refer a conciliation, so it will be treated as conciliation under the Arbitration Act from Section 65 to 81. The same sections will apply to that conciliation, though it is a statutory conciliation. Now what 18(3) says? 18(3) says that if the conciliation fails, then you refer it to arbitration, what I've already informed you. And it will be treated as a reference under the Arbitration Act as if it is under the Section 7 of the Arbitration Act, and it is as per the agreement. Whether there is any agreement or not, it is irrelevant. Arbitration is mandatory as per the statute because it is a statutory arbitration. Now, the most important and crucial part is Section 18(4). 18(4) says that if so it starts with a non-obstant clause. It says, notwithstanding anything contained in any other law, the council shall have jurisdiction where an entity is within its territorial limit. So take an example that in my contract with Anand, I am a micro small entity. I am a supplier under the Act. And I am based in Delhi. The contract between me and Anand says Bangalore. The site was in Bangalore. Cause of action took place in Bangalore. Jurisdiction clause of the agreement says Bangalore. Interesting part about section 18.4 is that notwithstanding all of this, the MSME Council in Delhi shall have jurisdiction because I am situated here in Delhi. The supplier is situated in Delhi. So cause of action and the jurisdiction clause, or where the defendant resides, all of that has nothing to do. The CPC principles will not be applicable because the statute gives an overriding effect to 18.4 and says where the supplier is situated, only that place shall have jurisdiction and that conciliation body will take up the matter. Now, interestingly, this issue came up before the Honorable Delhi High Court in a judgment, Indian Oil Corporation, where there was a seat of arbitration defined under the arbitration agreement. And the issue was raised whether seat will have any significance or not. So the court, the division bench of the Delhi High Court, I think I'm forgetting the name, but the judgment clearly said that when seat has been defined in the agreement, then for all practical purposes, seat will remain the same, which is mentioned in the agreement. Whereas the MSME Council, that will be treated as the venue of the arbitration. So venue and seat. So they said Act provides only the venue, not the seat. Seat will be treated as the one which is there in the agreement. Now, more importantly, in 18.5, the most, I think for any lawyer, this would be very interesting to know that every reference under the section 18 shall be decided within a period of 90 days. So imagine if a matter goes, it has to be decided within 90 days. I mean, it sounds very impractical, I know, and not implemented strictly, but that is the mandate of the Act, because the MSME should not suffer for a long time, because generally we see in courts matters going on for years and years, but this provision clearly says no, every reference has to finish in 90 days. Now, the ambiguity in this is whether they talk about conciliation to finish in 90 days, or the arbitration to finish in 90 days, or conciliation and arbitration both to finish in 90 days. So that is an ambiguity on which there is no answer. In fact, many of the arbitrations which are happening, I mean, what practically happens in Delhi, I'll tell you, or in other places. If conciliation fails and if arbitration is referred to an institute, then it is governed as per the Arbitration Act. And the period of 1 year is what is treated as the time period for entering the award, though the provision clearly says 90 days and not 1 year. Now, I mean, all the provisions are very interesting. 18 is interesting, 19 is interesting. So from 15 to 23 is all that you need to know. 19 says, this is the last provision which I'll be dealing with. Section 19 says that if you are challenging any order or appeal or award of such an entity, of any arbitration which was going on in MSME Act, then you need to deposit 75% of this amount before you can challenge this order or appeal. So now the issue is, if you are challenging an award, which generally parties do, then you have to first deposit 75% of the award amount. And the award amount, like I told you, with interest increases drastically. So the amount becomes huge. So that is in the interest of the MSMEs, that buyers like to settle the matter and not pursue the case further, because they know if they pursue it, A, the interest component, B, the jurisdiction issue, C, they know that the private agreement will have no value because it will be governed under the Act. It's a statutory arbitration. And lastly, the problem is they feel that if we challenge the order of MSME Council or the arbitrator, then we have to deposit 75% of the award amount, which can be withdrawn by the supplier on the conditions which will be imposed by the court, of course. So I have explained to you section 18, 19, and I have explained you 24, which says that there is an overriding effect. Now, one last issue I will touch, and then I'll be open to question answers. I know I've taken too much of your time. I'm really sorry. But I mean, I just thought that I want to explain everything that I know of. One issue that has arisen is whether the conciliation body can itself take up arbitration or not. Because the language of section 18 I have read for you, which says that 18.2, if you read, it says that council can itself take up conciliation or refer it to an institute. And then 18.3 says if conciliation proceedings fail, then the council can itself conduct arbitration or refer it to an institute. So in a way, MSME Act encourages institutional arbitration, and it doesn't talk about ad hoc arbitration at all. So that's why it says refers to an institute. That is something which has to be kept in mind. And the problem that arose many times, in fact, in Gujarat High Court, it's a very interesting judgment. Steel Authority of India, judgment of Bombay High Court, and the other is Gujarat Petronet, which I think all of you must read. And there's a Gujarat High Court view on this point also. You may also read the judgments in Macintosh versus MSCFC, then Mangalore, Niveli versus Driplex. All these judgments on the same point, but I have just told you the relevant ones. The recent one is Driplex versus Niveli. It's a division bench judgment, which might be relevant. So, yeah, I think Kushika has very rightly pointed out. Steel Authority versus MSCFC. Steel Authority basically took a different view. They said, look, if you are conducting conciliation yourself, then you cannot do arbitration yourself. Because under Section 80, if I'm not wrong, of the Arbitration Act, an entity which is doing the conciliation cannot do the arbitration. There's a bar. But other courts have held that no, there is no such bar. The statute clearly says that the council can itself take up the conciliation, and if conciliation fails, there is no bar for the conciliation body to itself act as the arbitral tribunal. So that was another major issue which was happening. I mean, the matter is in Supreme Court currently, Gujarat Petronet. But this is the long and short of MSME. And now I think I'll be open to any question answers that you may have. I've taken too much of your time. Thank you very much. So any questions that you may have, you may ask me now.
Thank you very much, Tariq ji, for the wonderful presentation. In fact, it was really engrossing and very informative too. You have touched upon the basic fundamentals of the MSME, and then you have gone on to cover the important sections which are very important while we go for arbitration, etc. So I'm sure all the participants would also have gained some insights on this. With your permission, let us now move to the next segment called as APLC's APLC, which is Ask the Popular Learned Counsel. We have prepared a set of questions for you. I'll shoot the first one. Yeah. What is your advice for an entrepreneur who wishes to set up his or her micro, small or medium enterprise post this lockdown, considering there are so many benefits or facilities which the government is providing, especially with respect to Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat and all. So what is that one piece of advice you would like to give to the entrepreneur who is ready to set up his enterprise?
Okay. So like recently there's a COVID package which was introduced by the Finance Ministry. Under that, there are various benefits, and I think a huge amount of money has been, so the budget has been sanctioned for giving loans, without any collateral security to these MSMEs. So I think it's an excellent opportunity that if you want to set up a business, you may look at micro or a small enterprise. It's a brilliant idea because of the dispute resolution mechanism also, and that you get so many concessions, you're getting loan without any collateral security. What else do you think? Because government is in fact looking at encouraging and promoting these MSMEs. So I think it's an excellent choice post-COVID to go for it. Okay, there's one question from Devikant sir. Devikant sir has asked me a question that, can a micro or a small enterprise make a reference under Section 18 of the Council for claim of damages for wrongful termination of contract? So sir, basically, if you look at the language of Section 1516, it talks about the supplies which were made and the invoices which were not paid. So it does not talk about at the stage of conciliation. However, when you raise your invoices to the MSME Council and the conciliation fails, and when you are in arbitration, then in my view, personally, I have taken up all these claims regarding damages, etc., because then it is being governed by Arbitration Act. In fact, the judgments of, there were a few judgments recently pronounced wherein the courts have held that MSME Council, in fact, the Steel Authority judgment of Justice, I'm forgetting the name, the Bombay High Court judgment, it says that these two acts, MSME Act and the Arbitration Act, go hand in hand. Only in case of inconsistency, Section 24 plays, which talks about the overriding effect. So far as arbitration is concerned, once the arbitration starts, then it is governed by the Arbitration Act. And I don't think there is anything in the MSME Act which says that you cannot claim damages for wrongful termination of contract, because it is only when conciliation fails and you don't get your invoices cleared, that is when you go for arbitration and raise whatever claims you want.
Yeah.
Thank you, Viram. Yes, sorry, Anand, you can now ask me a question.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Tariq ji. No, I think it will be better if
I'm
you
very
just.
happy to see that some of my mentors are also watching. Divekant sir and Miss Iram Majuchi is also here. So it's pretty good. Yeah, please go
So
ahead.
I welcome you all for this webinar. Thank you. And now now let us just move to the questions from the participants. Let us take this first, and then let us then come back to this APLC segment. So the
No,
first question.
I think okay, if there are questions, you may go ahead.
No,
Yes,
there are
please.
other questions from the other participants as well. Let us
Okay,
first cover
Steve.
their questions. So then
Yes.
later on we can come up with our questions. So it is one question is asked by Mr. Pradeep. So what is that MSME for hilly states like Uttarakhand? He wants to know what are the benefits or special provisions that are available for people in hilly states like Uttarakhand. Is there any specific clause or section which deals with this?
No, no. In my view, there is no such because the act is uniform. It's the act of parliament. And so far as because the procedure may differ from city to city. Like when I go to councils in UP, the way the proceedings are conducted is very different. Similarly, in Nagpur, etc., in Punjab, so different places have different way of functioning. But so far as the act is concerned, the act is uniform. The act is same. For your ease of reference, if you open the website of Samadhan, the Samadhan website has a FAQ. If you look at it, they have answered all your questions, what you have to do, and they have made it extremely simple how to get yourself registered, etc. It's extremely simple. So now there are no more technicalities that you have to file all the documents. They will take you on your face value. Whatever amount you will say that this is the investment in machinery, they will believe you. Only if they find out that it is a lie and you are concealing the correct investment in machinery, that you will be barred from availing any benefits under the act.
Thank you, Tariq ji, for this wonderful answer. Now, moving on to the next question. It is by Mr. Abhinav Jain. Does Section 2N of subsection 3 requires the enterprise in question either to be dealing with separate entity, which is a MSME, or that the enterprise in question itself should be an MSME?
So basically, this was also explained because the language is very ambiguous. If you read the judgment in Ramki Infrastructure Limited, Justice Bhakru has very rightly explained. It says an entity that is supplying the goods or rendering services from its own enterprise. That is the wording which has been used, and that's how Justice Bhakru has interpreted it. But in my view, the argument which I am taking in one of my matters, because the issue is that if you make any company which is taking goods and supplying it, which is being manufactured by a micro or small entity, then in that case, companies like Reliance, Tata, etc., may also get the benefits of the act, which cannot be the intention of the act of 2006. So, in my view, only those entities which are supplying their own goods, which they are themselves producing, they are rendering those services. That may be the actual interpretation of 2 and 3.
Yeah, thank you. Now, moving on to the next question. It is by Ms. Praveena Bisht.
Yes.
She wants to know would the new criteria introduced through the circular of June 2020 be applicable on the micro or small enterprises which are already registered under Section 8?
Yes, it's a 26th June, not 20th June, I think. But this notification of 26th June, which has come into effect from 1st July, it says that those which are already existing will have to do this exercise from the next year, financial year ending 31st March. So after, I think they have given a period of 1 year or 2 year, 2021. They have to comply after 2021. It is mentioned, I think that's the exact date which has been given, that ones which are already existing and enjoying the benefits, they will have to comply with the set criteria from the next financial year and file their ITR, etc., GST, PAN card, all of that has to be given.
Yeah, and I think the government has also given them adequate time to comply with the
That's given.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Tariq ji. Now, moving on to the next question. It is by Advocate Prakash Kumar. He is practicing in Ranchi courts in Jharkhand, and he is one of our regular participants. He wants to know, is MSME registration process completely free? Is MSME registration process fully online, paperless, and based on self-declaration? Is there no documents or proofs required to be uploaded for registering MSME? Is it completely free? He's asking.
You're right. So, to my knowledge, as per the, if you read the circular of 26 June, which talks about the whole procedure and how things will go forward, it is paperless. It's only on the basis of self-declaration. No document needs to be uploaded. It is very simple. You apply the name of the portal. I told you, Udyam registration. So you can Google Udyam registration certificate or Udyam registration portal, and they will send you an acknowledgement which will make you eligible. So there is no formality, no technicality. It is only in the future, as and when required, that you'll have to file your ITR, etc., to show that your turnover, your investment in machinery is X, and your GST and PAN card for the purpose of the turnover that you are getting per year.
Yes, it is
That
completely.
circular is self-explanatory. If you read the
Yeah,
circular, all your queries will be answered. It's a detailed circular, notification, not a circular. Sorry.
yeah, it is completely free and it is also user friendly. I think the website is user friendly,
Yes,
but it is
yes.
also available in Hindi as well.
Yeah, yeah. Even the
Yeah.
act is in Hindi and English. So
Yes.
that's, yeah.
Thank you, Tariq ji. Now moving on, switching back to the APLC questions. So, as you rightly pointed out during your presentation, MSME conciliation arbitration, you touched upon this, yeah, matter relating to conciliation and arbitration. I would just like to know, as to MSME conciliation and arbitration involves cost, what piece of advice you give for an enterprise before going for arbitration or litigation? So what are the points they need to consider?
So the first thing is, whenever you have any such, payments which are delayed, which are being delayed by the buyer. So, I mean, at the outset, you need to know that registration is important. Ideally, to avoid all the, problems which arise in courts and to get rid of that technicality, it's better to get yourself registered if you have not already registered yourself, because there's no point going into that question whether a entity which is not registered can get the benefits, because sometimes court take years and there's a lot of cost which is involved. So it is better to get yourself registered, then approach the facilitation council. You file your claim before the council will take 90 days, because I told you, as per 18.5, every reference must be finished within 90 days. 90 days is a very small period. So you need to, if you can afford a lawyer, you can take a lawyer. You can also in person go and get it filed. You can also, in fact, file it online in Samadhan website. There's a provision, and it's very simple now. They've made it very simple. But the problem is, sometimes when you apply, they take months to get your matter listed, because there are too many pending requests of cases and they're not taken up every day. So, I mean, if you can go personally to the office, follow up, get your matter listed at the earliest, that is the best advice. Then when it is listed, you try to be reasonable in conciliation, because the conciliation body generally takes the side of the micro or small enterprise, and they are prejudiced in a way. I should not be using this word, but because it's a welfare legislation, so their endeavor is that the dispute gets settled and the payment is made to the entity. So, reasonable approach should be taken. If payment is being given with, you may think of foregoing the interest part, because a lot of time people are like, no, I want the 3 times the bank rate interest. So they don't want the balance price also. And then eventually they get into so ordinarily they should avoid going for litigation, avoid going for arbitration. But if it is inevitable, then all of this can simply be, because arbitration also is a time limit. And like I said, there is no clarity whether the reference says that 90 days it should be finished. But even if it is as per the Arbitration Act, then also 1.5 year is nothing. You get your money quickly because you are MSME. So when you win the award, the courts will also ask them to deposit 75% as per Section 19, and you can easily withdraw that amount. So I think, yeah, that's how it is. In comparison to normal arbitration, it is much, much, much better.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, but one thing the enterprise should keep in mind is it involves cost, it involves time, and it involves a lot of energy.
Yes.
Yes. So now moving on quickly to the next question. As we were discussing about the unregistered enterprises, which have already started doing their business or providing service, when, where, and how can he or she can get the enterprise registered?
Sorry, say
If we, no,
if
no,
somebody is not. Hmm.
no, for unregistered enterprises who have already started their operations. We were talking about the time when we are going to start an enterprise. At that time, we can go and register ourselves in online. So for the benefit of our audience, we would like to know if an unregistered enterprise has already started its operation. So then when, where and how it can go and register itself into the category of micro, small and medium enterprise.
You can do it right now. If I am somebody who has started a enterprise 3 months ago, 4 months ago, yesterday, I can go today and upload, fill the details and get a e-certificate. There's no harm. I mean, you can always do it. It's only the case where the fresh ones are there who are not existing for a very long time. They may not be having the ITR. So they will be considered on the basis of their face value. They have to give a self-declaration in the first year. They have to show that, look, my investment is X in the machinery and turnover is Y. So they will believe you. Whatever you say, they will give you that category. But from the next year, it will be on the basis of the ITR and GST and PAN.
So it will have a retrospective effect. Even if we register ourselves after 6-7 months of operations, it will have a retrospective effect.
Yeah. If you look at the circular of 26 June, which will answer all these questions, it clearly says that entities which are already subsisting and which were registered under the 2006 Act initially, and the entities which are now going to register, and entities which got registered this year only. It talks about all those and what is to be done by them. So like I said, the ones which are already existing, they have to comply with this circular next year, financial year after 31st March. The criteria will be on the basis of the financial. Basically, they just want to make sure that you are not taking undue advantage of the ad and you are a genuine micro or a genuine small enterprise. Because if your turnover increase over a period of time, they will shift your, they will graduate, they will promote you. They will make you a small rather than a micro. So that is the idea.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the clarification. Now moving on to the next question. If an MSME, micro, small or medium enterprise gets a loan, government loan, and they fail to repay, so what is the next procedure that the government adopts or the financial creditors like the bank take? Whether they go in for arbitration, conciliation, or they directly go for litigation?
I have not come across a case like that, but government has been very kind to MSMEs, and the idea is to encourage because to avoid the incidents of sickness. So I may not, I have not come across, frankly, a case like that. But there are different schemes of the government. I have seen ministry working for them, and the fact that they don't take a collateral security. I mean, in some cases they just want to promote them. So maybe, in some cases that has been waived off. Perhaps I may not be the best person for that. I'll have to check that.
No, because once we started promoting our event for this particular event, people started asking this specific question in the view of this lockdown and this pandemic. People are not able to repay the loans which they had already taken from the government or the banks. So the people wanted to know this. So that is why this question was asked.
No, I'll give you an example. So if you look at the insolvency, for instance, so insolvency proceedings are put on hold for some time. So government is well aware, and I'm sure they will not take any adverse step. But if you want something concrete, I'll have to check it. And anybody who has this question can reach out to me over an email, or can just, I'll answer that. I think it's an interesting thing to read.
Yeah, sure, sir, sure. Thank you. And I would like to know whether there is any one-time settlement scheme once this MSME matter goes for conciliation or arbitration. So is there any option for one-time settlement scheme?
So there's no scheme as such, but yes, what happens is like tomorrow, if me and Anand, we go for a conciliation proceeding. So obviously the buyer don't want to, most of the times they say, okay, we don't want to get into it. We don't want to pay the 3 times the bank rate interest. So they will offer a one-time amount. That's the general norm. Because when they receive our proposal, our claim, they come up with some proposal. If my claim is 2 crores, they'll be like, okay, I'll give you 1.50 full and final. If you are ready, let me know. So that is the kind of one-time settlement which is proposed. If that doesn't happen, of course, then they go for arbitration. As such, there is no scheme of one-time settlement.
Yeah. So because there are a lot of one-time settlement cases where the defaulter is given an opportunity to pay with certain waiver of interest or something to just to close this issue. That is why this question was asked.
That's the job of the conciliation body. Because, when you go for a hearing, whenever I have gone for a hearing, I have seen the conciliation body telling the buyer, look, if you don't settle right now, if it goes on, then, you'll have to pay interest, which is penal interest in a way. 3 times the bank rate interest. So why don't you pay right now, one-time settlement, just finish it right away. As such, there is no scheme, but this is a practice which is adopted. They say that finish it right away. Okay, there's one question from Ms. Iram Majid. She's saying private institutions are also available for conciliation and mediation. Yes, because you are the best person. Ms. Iram Majid is in fact one of the best mediator and conciliator. So yes, I mean, MSME Act says in 18.2 that if the conciliation may be conducted by the body itself or referred to an institute which is doing conciliation. So yeah, I mean, private institutes can also be engaged for that.
Yes, this will be helpful for a lot of people who are doing it in a private practice.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Now, quickly moving on to the next question.
Yeah.
Can we, in a sense, compare fully export-oriented enterprises and local service providers on the same scale? Don't you think there is the classification of them as micro, small, or medium enterprise is wrong, keeping in mind the recent amendments?
No,
Comparing them on.
there will not be any bias. There will not be any bias because the notification clearly says that for purpose of calculation of turnover, the export will be excluded. So you read that, so that part will not make any difference. Eventually, it will all come down to the turnover and the machinery, which of course will be same. So it cannot be that a trader or somebody, like I told you the issue, can take the benefit because he's importing and selling stuff. Now both the criteria have to be fulfilled. As long, the only thing is that you have to meet this criteria, and how it has to be done. The 26th June circular clearly says that the for purpose of the export will be excluded for the purpose of calculating turnover. So that won't make any difference.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And moving on to the next question. There are industry-oriented cities and states in India like Chennai, Coimbatore, Ahmedabad, Mumbai, Bangalore, etc. And there are altogether other set of agro-oriented states and cities. And of course, there are other states like Northeast states and hilly states. So what kind of activity or steps taken by the government to individually cater the requirements of these particular states, sir? Since the law covered is very generic, but don't you think there is a need, a requirement for case-to-case basis to address the needs of individual enterprises?
I completely agree that it should be on the basis of the region, because some regions may require more development, more promotion in comparison to other geographical locations. But to my mind, as per my knowledge, I don't think I have come up with some separate notification for a particular state for the development of the MSMEs of that state. Because like I said, it is only by the central government aimed at all the micro small entities across the country. But yes, I mean, I'm not sure about the state governments or anybody whether they have taken such steps, but I have personally not come across. But I completely agree that it should be on that basis.
Yes, regional preference should also be given, as well as the geographical identity and importance should be considered before giving some particular perks to particular enterprises.
You're right.
Because we cannot compare apples and oranges on the same scale.
One question has come from Deepshika. Deepshika has asked a question: if there is a false declaration of investment of turnover, is there a penal action taken against such fraudulent conduct? Yes, Deepshika, what action will be taken, that we don't know because it's just been implemented. But yes, it does talk about an action being taken by the authority under the act. That's all it says. If you read the language of the 26th June circular, it says that if the information is found to be incorrect, then action will be taken under, which is as per the act. So what action will be taken, I'm not sure that they've explained, but we are still to see how it will be implemented. That we'll get to know then and there.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for answering the question. And do you personally feel the recent amendments which the government has introduced has got some effect on the MSME, or it is just the papers with it is in on papers?
I feel that it is a very positive step. Earlier, the law which was existing, I told you the issues with it, the classification criteria. The only thing is that how it will be implemented, of course, it all depends on that. But the way to identify every year what is going to be the turnover, what is the investment in machinery, this way the genuine MSMEs will only get the benefits. And earlier, many entities which were drawing turnover of 100 crores were showing themselves as micro. So the genuine MSMEs will be identified and they will be given the benefit rather than those entities which do not qualify at all. But the only issue which I see with this is because the word they have used is and. So you have to show your investment in machinery and the turnover. So some genuine MSMEs may not fall in both criteria. Like I explained you, the micro entity which is required to have less than 1 crore investment in machinery and turnover less than 5 crore. So what if the turnover is more than 1 crore and the investment in machinery is less than a crore? Then neither you are micro or small because you don't fit in both the brackets. So that issue may arise in future.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think it is all up to when it comes to implementation, government should consider all these points.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yes, sir. Last question, which we are coming up for the day before we wrap this session, sir. What is
Yeah.
the difference? What is the difference between a startup company and an MSME? Is the word interchangeable, or people get carried away by the fancy words like startup companies, or it is completely altogether different?
See, it's not different. What needs to be seen is if I'm an entrepreneur and I have no investment in the machinery, I have no plant. Now, how do you identify what is the investment in machinery? Because a lot of people do not know what should be calculated. Like today, if I have to ascertain whether I'm a micro or not, what all should I think about? What will be the amount that I have to include in mind to see if I'm a micro or small? So whatever equipments are there in the entity, in the enterprise, and whichever machinery is used, the invoice of that, the property, the price of the land or property is not counted, it is excluded. The furniture and fittings are not included. There has to be some equipment which is kept. Like if I, in my room today, if I set up a plant, a water treatment plant, or if there is something wherein I'm manufacturing something, or rendering certain services which are carried by these entities. So investment in machinery will be the criteria. So whether you call it a startup, it can be a company, it can be Tariq Private Limited, it can be anything by whatever name called. That's why you read the language of 2 and 3, it says by whatever name called. But the criteria are simply so long as you are satisfying the investment in machinery and the plant, the equipment, and your annual turnover satisfied, no matter what you like to call your entity. I may like to call it a startup, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a sole proprietor. That's all irrelevant in my view.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for this answer, and also for taking time and coming on board to AP Legal Chambers webinar, sir. Few final words before we wrap this session.
Yeah, I am really thankful to all of you for taking out time. And I mean, I was very surprised to see that some of my mentors also in fact participated, and some very senior people are here. So thank you for taking out your time. And in case you have any queries which I may not have been able to address today, you may take my email ID from Anand. You may reach out to me. I'll be happy to address those issues, those doubts, because I know MSME is a very, it's very recent, and it's not something which a lot of people know about, but it's an upcoming field. And I think in times to come, it is going to be key area of practice for a lot of lawyers, law firms, etc. So, I mean, I tried to share whatever I knew. And I hope these amendments are implemented, and whoever, if there are any entrepreneurs, if there are any micro or small entity, representatives here. I mean, if at the end of the day, I think this is a very good legislation, and we must try and be careful in availing these benefits, because a lot of MSMEs don't even know these benefits exist. So they are clueless. So I think knowing is important, and then pursuing is very important, properly and effectively. So thank you very much, everyone. It was really a pleasure. I'm really glad to see it was a very good interactive session and such a response from all of you. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for this wonderful presentation. And on behalf of my team, AP Legal Chambers, and on my personal behalf, I thank you very much for coming on board. And to all the participants, we thank all the participants for your continuous support and patronage. We've got other exciting webinars coming up this Thursday and coming weeks. So stay tuned, connect with us in Facebook, and also subscribe to our channel AP Legal Chambers to be the first person to receive the latest updates. And this video would the particular sessions video would also be uploaded in YouTube in a couple of days' time. So keep a tab on YouTube and Facebook for regular updates. It is Anand signing off. Thank you all for this attending this webinar, and have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.